On the cutting edge of anomaly research, you are about to experience The Evidence with your host, 3D pioneer and image analyst with Mars X3D, E.W. Gannett.
Hi there, and welcome to episode number 122 of The Evidence. This is your buddy Dave over Mars X3D. And just a quick reminder, X3D, easy to do, link below. If you're not familiar with it, most people can learn it in a couple of minutes. And that's what turns your computer into the world's largest viewmaster. It's a ton of fun. And there's nothing that takes the place of standing on the surface of Mars and seeing with your own eyes in 3D the things that await us there. Today we're going to talk a little bit about geology. Specifically, when is geology not geology? One of the things we'll be talking about briefly is fractal and non-fractal mathematics. And that simply is that fractal represents the equations that you find in nature, like this boulder here. Non-fractal are whole numbers divided by fractions, and that always represents or is a very clear indicator of intelligent agency. So we're going to have a look at a couple of items. Are they geology? Are they artifacts? We'll apply those filters to it and see what we get. So let's go ahead and jump on in. So, when is geology not geology? Well, I hope I can clear some of that up today, maybe a little bit, and we're going to start with this item right there in the lower center. Let your eyes run along this odd formation from left to right, and think about what you're seeing. Something's not quite right here. As you look at the square with a circular formation inside of it, and then another small formation directly in the center of it, all of that set within a square that has a number of right angles. You have to wonder, is this a natural erosion or is this something else? Then, as we continue down this odd formation, notice the bilateral symmetry. Notice the rhomboid at the very top, perfect one, and then that scoop with the walls that have even thickness. And down at the end, it's round and appears to have spokes in it, almost like a chariot wheel. Once again, you have to wonder, is this natural or is this something else? But you know as well as I that the problem we're facing here is one of resolution. These images just are not clear enough to make a definitive call, and that's why we rely upon non-fractal math as indicators of intelligent agency. Now, it may well be that if we ever get a crystal clear image of this, then it might turn out to be entirely natural and just a fortuitous arrangement of rather miraculous erosion. It can happen. We see it here on Earth. There's no reason it can't happen on Mars. But this is why you want to take a look for the non-fractal mathematics, those things which indicate intelligent agency, because otherwise you're going to run around and point at every single stone and say, oh look, another anomaly, another artifact, when in fact probably only a small percentage of them actually are. Now let's take a look at a piece that's hiding over there, right on the edge of the picture, on the lower right. Now the first thing we notice is two parallel sides, which are the same thickness and approximately the same shape, at least they appear to be. And in between are a number of spheres, and there's even kind of a gear shift knob in there, a stick with a knob on the end of it. So do we just go straight up and say, oh look, an artifact? Well, not really. I mean, despite the bilateral symmetry, which is not that great, I would say it's 80%, and the same thickness, that type of thing, there's not enough non-fractal math present here to make a definitive call. Now, just me with my bias, I would call this a very corroded piece of ancient machinery, but it could be just a rock. And while we're in the same GMAC of 3286, we have this item up in the center there that kind of pops out. Let's take a closer look. We're looking at a rock, a J rock I'm calling it, that's all even thickness and very neatly bent down at the bottom, a very nice radius. So, is this an artifact? I don't know. But I would like someone to explain to me just exactly how rock would bend in this fashion. Is it perhaps metal? Is it perhaps something else? But, again, not enough non-fractal math present to just call it a straight-up artifact. But it is very strange and compelling. So we have this big chunk of bluestone inside the green target, and we're going to take a close look at that in just a moment. But look also at those items inside the yellow squares. They are definitely non-fractal, but the resolution on them is so poor that they're not worth even presenting. Only at this distance can you clearly see the right angles, the triangle, the various aspects of the mathematics that indicate intelligent agency. Being a skeptic is healthy, and I can just hear a skeptic out there saying, "Come on, Dave, that's just a rock, right?" Well, maybe not. Let's take a little closer look at it. For example, how about this very clearly formed cube on the left-hand side? Then there's this rectangular and triangular shaped, almost a prison shape, right on top. Look at those angles. Are those natural? And don't forget this almost perfect oval right there in front of us. There are other small details that are anomalous, but based on the math that we just looked at, this is definitely non-fractal. It's definitely made by an intelligent hand. It appears to be a badly fused and melted piece of machinery, in my opinion. Next is a find by Sarah Runcie, and I think this one is really interesting. Take a look at that sharply rectangular platform with a double-sided piece perpendicular to it, nicely radiused, both sides symmetrical in thickness. I mean, this is clearly, to me, artificial. But then, let's look at this entire image with an archaeologist's eye. I want to point out that I'm just an amateur archaeologist. I don't have the eyes of a degreed and peer-reviewed kind of science guy like that. But here's what I do see. On the left, we have those 4 arrows, each of which is pointing at a block with 90-degree angles that has clearly been worked. Just to the right of the large boulder in the center, we have a piece, again with 90-degree angles, and what appears to be a letter A engraved upon it. Maybe that's just an illusion. And then you come over to the next arrow, and you have another piece that has those little beading work all along the edge, and on the right-hand side, another couple of very strange pieces. It's like I've said before, if with a water moccasin you run across one, you know there's another one right nearby. And that's usually the case with any of the anomalies we find. This image is full of non-fractal items that clearly show intelligent agency. Perseverance is showing us all kinds of ruins and blocks and devices and fused metal, things of that nature, which NASA, of course, will never acknowledge. But we're going to take a look at a couple of them right now from Percy 363. And we're going to start out with something that's maybe a little bit blurry, but worth looking at. There inside, the yellow target. Clearly, at this resolution, it really is terrible. It's so blurry, and these are supposed to be 4K cameras. But look at the item right in the center there. We have what appears to be markings inside of a circle. And to the left of that, some more markings. What do we have there? This is the fleur-de-lis. It's the traditional symbol of the House of David. In the several expeditions I made to Israel, archaeological expeditions, we would routinely find circles with the fleur-de-lis engraved within them. All of this in ancient stonework. Is that what this is? Well, probably not. But the fact that it is a three-lobed pattern, apparently carved within a circle, which apparently has an even thickness and is part of a rectangular block, it does make you stop and think, doesn't it? And not far away, we have this interesting item inside the red target. As long as we're talking about both Hebrew and Christian symbols, what about this apparent cross that lies within a beaded circle? The stone that it's on has a circle of pits or holes around the perimeter just below, and it's also symmetrically shaped. So once again, is this erosion? I don't know. Is there enough non-fractal math here to proclaim it an artifact? No. But once again, it is definitely an artifact candidate. We're staying right with Percy 363, this really nice GMAC by Neville Thompson. And your eyes by now should be able to pick out the very distinct rectangular block inside the yellow target area. I have to say, my phone camera gets better resolution than this. I have no idea why these supposed 4K color cameras have such terrible resolution unless they're purposely garbaging up the JPEGs, which is kind of what I think they're doing. Anyway, this is clearly a rectangular block, absolutely clear. And on the end, facing us, what appear to be the studs and something or other sticking out of the end of it. What is it? Well, we don't know. Then we have this strange symmetrical block just below it, and it appears to have markings on it as well. Now, the resolution is going to be garbage. It already is. But let's zoom in and lighten it up a bit and see what we can see. Nothing definitive, but they are very interesting markings. An X, what looks like an anchor to the left, a circle above, and other markings. Does this make this an artifact? Well, no. Again, a good artifact candidate. But the original block we looked at, absolutely an artifact. You may recall in the last episode, we had a good look at some wall sections, some alphabets, that type of thing. And we have found another one. Again, we're in the same GMAC. We haven't left this yet. So if you click the link down below, there's a ton of stuff for you to look at. This really looks like a wall section to me. And some of you are going to say, well, that's just a boulder that's been cracked. Okay, let's take that central crack and run down to the bottom, and it ends in a circular hole. Have you ever seen a crack do that? And then the way the stones are melded together on the right side, the way the crack follows the contour. Now, some of you might say, okay, Dave, you're just looking at a rock. Knock it off. But remember we talked about looking at an image with an archaeologist's eye? Take a look at this. All the way in back there, on the right, a perfectly rectangular block. And moving from left to right in the foreground, a rectangular block with even scoops taken out of it. And then another rectangular block, and then another rectangular block, and then another, under the sand, rectangular block. And of course there's more in this image that I didn't point out. But you're starting to get the idea, I hope. And I didn't want to leave this image until I pointed out those 3 little balls in back, perfectly spaced, perfectly sized, all the same size in a row. That looks decorative to me. The only other explanation, it is 3 boulders in a row, tiny boulders in a row, that have been eroded into an almost circular shape and somehow landed in exactly the same position in a line and equally distant from each other. You tell me which explanation works better. So, when is geology not geology? When enough non-fractal mathematics are present to move it from the natural class into the artifact class. I hope this was helpful to you in some regard, and if not, that's okay. There's no problem. But if you did like something, please consider leaving a thumbs up. That really helps me with YouTube and with their algorithms and all of that stuff. And I sure do thank you for stopping by today. To all of my proud weirdos out there, you know who you are. Stay safe and stay weird. This is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D. Be well.